Hello. Like Ben said, my name's Patrick, and I'm here today to talk about progressive web apps. Now, just out of curiosity, how many people here have heard of progressive web apps before? Beautiful. Oh, that's so much better than a year ago. How many people have created a progressive web app? It's still way better than last year, so I'm still happy. Like Ben mentioned, I work on Edge at Microsoft out in Redmond. If you happen to look me up online afterwards, you'll find that photo of me. Despite what the t-shirt says, I do work at Microsoft, not at Apple. I just have that because every year for my birthday, my partner Katrina makes me cakes, so I dress up every year in a theme. Now, normally she's here. Last time we were in London, she was actually here with me, but since London, we had a baby, and so she's back in the States taking care of him. And it's awesome being a dad. It's our first kid, and he's adorable. And it's funny how easy he was. Like, I got so many warnings about how hard it is to be a parent, but I feel like I had some kind of cheat code because he's incredibly easy all the time. He's never upset. He never cries. He actually got sick a few months ago. He's fine now, but he just had like a fever, and we had to take him to the hospital because we thought he was sick. And they wouldn't accept him because he looked like that with 102-degree fever. Like, he was still happy and laughing despite it. He got better, though, and now he's a lumberjack. But well, we're from the Pacific Northwest, so it's kind of the natural. It's either web developer, barista, or this. But, well, the one thing, though, that he does hate is going on rides. He hates being, like, strapped into car seats. And just, like, I guess he doesn't like being pinned down. But he's like this unless you put it on, and then it's just like a hell beast gets unleashed. And so after a few months, though, we were getting a little stir-crazy. I like to go on drives for trips. I go on road trips all the time. I drove down here from Edinburgh, for an example. Like, I like driving. And so we wanted to go up to Vancouver, because it's beautiful, if you've never been. Just a refresher, since this is the other side of the ocean. I live in Seattle, which is up there. Vancouver's just above there. It's like driving to Manchester from here. But this was the first time we were going on a trip with our kid, and so we were a little worried, and being a nerd, I went online and I searched up, how can I keep a baby calm? Because I knew that he was going to get really upset. And luckily, I found this really neat video. It's basically just this. It's just dots that kind of move around the page. And I have no idea why it works. It just works really, really well. Whenever he gets upset, I just show him this video, and it snaps him out of it in like a half a second, and he's perfectly fine. Once I take it away, he continues to be fine. Everything's great. So get him in the car, go on a ride. He starts getting upset, show him it. He's fine. We go up. He's happy. He's smiling whole time. He's looking out the window, not while we're driving, looking at the snow. And then we get to walk around, and eventually he gets tired. And so we decide to go home, and we strap him in the car, and that wakes him up. And I pull out my phone because I'm like, I got you. And then I get this, and it just loads. See, with my phone carrier, I have unlimited data worldwide, but it's 2G outside of the United States, and I'm in Canada. And so after about 2 minutes, I still have this, and after about 5 minutes, I still have this, and I just start getting more and more angry at my phone because I was like, God, this 2G just kind of completely ruined my day because we were having a great day, but then my kid was all really upset. So I'm just kind of stewing on this the whole time and how irritated I am on it. Get down to the border, my 4G comes back, and I realize, it's not that 2G ruined my day because the video pops up while I'm still on 2G. It was just that 45 megabytes ruined my day. When I created a solution for my crying baby, it was this gigantic bloated video that was just dots dancing on the screen. Like, it doesn't need to be 45 megabytes. It's just the fact that it's a video. And so from the border all the way down to my apartment in Seattle, I'm just thinking about all the different ways in which I was stupid for doing that and how I can make it better because I'm a web developer. It's just dots dancing on a page, damn it. And so I pull up Vim and I get home and I start writing, and I'm like, I have absolutely no idea how to make dancing, moving dots on a page. And so I just stare at Vim for like 2 hours. And see, I'm much better at JavaScript than I am at like UI stuff, and so when I get stuck, I have this kind of joke with myself that when I don't have a better idea, I just try and come up with a clever domain and make something after that. And that's exactly what I did. I bought Hush Little Baby. And by the time I did that, I was able to think of the right things to Google. And so now if you go to Hush Little Baby, you get dancing dots, and it's great. It's all this the exact same thing in like less than 6 kilobytes of code. It even has music that's lazy loaded in. It's not procedural or anything. It's like 2 megs, but it works. And so I just wanted to show you some of the features that I added to this website to make it work. First of which is Service Worker. If you're familiar with progressive web apps, you've probably heard of Service Workers. It's kind of one of the fundamental pieces of it. And our Service Worker is pretty straightforward. It's a cache first, which means that we go to the network, grab something, and then in the future, we just read directly from cache. And so this is what the first step looks like, that part where we go and we prefetch everything so it's available immediately. Up at the top, we define the key for our cache. You can have multiple caches. If you're creating a more complex web app, you might have something for hot data and cold data, like CSS might never change, but your JavaScript might change every single day. So you can have different caches so you can invalidate them at different times. We have an install event listener. And what that is when the service worker is registered for the very first time, this code will run. So this will only run the one time every time it's updated. We have an array of just files that are all the things that are going to be changing or all the things that we want to have stored in our cache and have available offline. And we just grab the event from the install event, and we wait until we open up our cache, in this case the prefetch cache. Then, since that returns a promise, it's a thenable, we just have a .then off of it. And we take our cache, and then we add all of our prefetch assets through this new request. And so it goes out and fetches all these things automatically, puts it in our cache. They're now saved to our device and available offline. This is our other half of our service worker. It's the fetch service worker, or fetch event rather. And what that is just every single time a network request happens on your page, whether it be CSS assets, image assets, XHR requests, anything, it will go through this fetch handler. And so we're able to respond with any asset that happens to be coming through, just in case we forgot to add an asset to that prefetch cache. So we have the fetch event. We try to respond with a cache data if it exists. If it doesn't exist, we just do a new fetch, and then we put it into our cache just like we did before, and then we return that response, and then everything works. It's all offline, it works great, and it's available immediately, and we get this great dancing dots, and I was so excited when I got this working. Honestly, the service worker was easy. It's mostly just the dots moving was what got me excited. But so I got this working, and so this is a diagram of my house. It's from my vacuum. I didn't know how to get a better one, but I develop over here, roughly, and the baby's room's roughly over there, the other side of the house. Now, my house is ancient for Seattle. It's about 100 years old, and I know most of you have like dust in your houses that are older than that, but it's exceptionally old for Seattle. And all of these buildings, every single one of these white dots represents a brick wall, and so there's like 6 brick walls in between it, and so signal is terrible, basically, on the other end of this building. And so I was really excited. I wanted to show Katrina, my partner, what had happened. I brought up my phone, I showed it to her, and she's like, oh, cool, let me try, because she's the one that takes care of Holden most days. She's able to stay home. I'm able to while I work, which is great. And she opens up her phone, and she pulls it up, and she gets this, because she has the signal on the other side of the house. And I realized, yet again, I made a terrible decision. I made a solution for me, just like that 45 megabyte video before. I made a service worker-based offline app, which doesn't work off of my Android phone on her iPhone, which sucks. Service worker is great. It's kind of the future, but right now, it's not phenomenally well supported. It's coming. All major browsers are pretty much going to implement or have given positive signals, but it's not there today, and therefore it doesn't stop my crying baby today. So that really bums me out, because I felt like I wasted a few days or a few hours or whatever long it had been. It was I've all forgotten how long it is at this point. But I was thinking how I could support it offline. How could I make it work on her phone? And I had a really bad thought, and I thought, what about app cache? Now, if you're familiar with app cache, you probably are familiar with it because of this talk from Jake. It's where app cache is a douchebag, and that's because it is. If you're unfamiliar, app cache was invented, about 10 years ago now. It came out of the Google Gears project. MySpace was a big user of it, to give you an idea of how old it is. And it really sucks. Service worker is way, way better than app cache, but app cache, I'm trying to say, it's so bad that they're actually deprecating it from HTML. We still have the marquee element in HTML, but we're actively removing app cache from the spec because it's that bad. We want to remove it from our collective memories. But in our case, it actually covers our use cases. And it's really, really well supported. Like, look at all the only place it's not supported is Opera Mini, and nothing's going to be supported there because it's Opera Mini. But it's supported everywhere, even in like IE 10. It's crazy support. It's great. And so I decided, in this case, I'll try it out. So I have a very simple detect. I check if service workers, because we always want to support service workers first. If they aren't supported, then we fall back to app cache. Now, if you've never used app cache, which I hope you haven't because it's terrible, you might be unfamiliar with the fact that in order to support the app cache, you actually have to add this HTML attribute up at the top, that manifest. And you can't add that dynamically. It has to be there at load time. And so what that means is that makes this kind of logic a lot more complicated, because you can't just arbitrarily add that file, right? What you end up having to do is even grosser than app cache itself. You create an iframe, you hide that iframe, you load a special HTML page that is only app cache, and then you append it to the document. And so this is the HTML that we have for our page that just loads up all those files. It has a special little cache manifest up at the top. Once we append that to that page, it takes over the whole domain, and now it can work offline on Katrina's iPhone. This is what a cache manifest looks like. You can pretty quickly see why it might be a lot less sufficient than a service worker. It's just a static list of assets. You define cache manifest up at the top. Then you define all the files you want to add. You can't add files to this dynamically. You can't create the file dynamically. Everything has to be there up front. So yet again, it's obviously not as good as service workers. And then at the bottom, you actually have this network asterisk field. And what that means is that with app cache, if you don't define this field, even if you're online, everything will 404 unless it's listed on that app cache. App cache is terrible. It is a douchebag. But it can do good things. For example, again, I'm traveling right now. I'm on really slow 2G on my phone. When I loaded up that Hush Little Baby without a cache at my hotel earlier today, it took 27 seconds to load it the first time, and this is like 7 kilobytes. After the app cache runs on my iPhone that I have right now, it took 190 milliseconds. 100 milliseconds is basically a human eye can't tell the difference between. It's near instantaneous, so it's effectively almost immediate because it's able to load directly from the cache. You're able to have a really, really, really fast offline experience, even on older devices, even with a terrible API, just because we were willing to kind of experiment with older, kind of more gross stuff. Now, if you're interested in possibly supporting offline applications a bit more, there's a great Webpack plugin called Offline Plugin, and it generates exactly this. It creates a static list of assets that can be loaded in a service worker and a app cache. It's available on this GitHub thing. It works really well. You might be thinking that your app's a lot more complicated. I mean, I wish all of my jobs were as easy as those dancing dots on the page, but most of the time we have to have users, we have to have state, at least if we want to get paid. And so a lot of times you have what might be more useful is thinking about like this. This is something Google's calling the app shell model. Effectively, rather than have the entire page be cached, you have assets up at the top, like the frames, the menus, etc., and then you load in the other apps. Those are available offline and they're statically available. You could have those in your app cache, and then all the content inside of it is available when you're online. And so Twitter recently released a PWA, and they have that app shell model. If you go to the twitter.com mobile site, even when you're offline, you'll get this menu immediately, and you'll be able to see stuff. It'll give you a warning that you're offline after a couple of seconds, but it is great. You have that immediate experience, and users feel like your app is much more native, much more fast. You no longer have to see the dinosaur, the broken heart, and Edge or anything. They just are always get online. Now, when I was creating an app cache, I felt dirty, but I figured it was kind of fun. And so I was thinking, how much further can I push this? Now, I don't know how long a lot of you have been developing, but does anybody remember HTAs? Yeah, all right, cool, more than I thought. Now, HTAs, you might have actually used them without being familiar with them. If you've ever used a Microsoft help file back in like Windows XP days, those were HTAs. It's a single document that was a packaged offline application. They were even grosser than app cache, but they are there and they support it, so I figured, heck, let's try and see if I can get it to work. So I went to my code and I switched it over to check if the user agent is MSIE. If it is, I give you this giant warning because you shouldn't be using IE unless you're checking my website, basically. You should be using a better browser. But so if you go there, you get this big, ugly message, and if you click it, you get a HTA. So I wrote a PWA that is available to run inside of IE5. Like, it can work really, really well. It can go. I don't think anybody should actually do this in production. It would be really a big waste of your time. But the thing I want to highlight is that it's not necessarily just a radical way to create web apps, these PWAs and these offline apps. It can be a radical new way to update these apps. I could have written that HTA 15 years ago and added these offline components now. Nothing would have stopped me. It would have worked back then. So start questioning and using these new features as they come out. Don't necessarily wait for all of these. You don't have to wait for everything to go stable in order to do it. A great example of this is the web manifest. Web app manifest, if you're unfamiliar, is a spec from the W3C. It's just a JSON manifest. If you've ever done like an Android or iPhone app or a Chrome extension, you'll be familiar. It's just a big JSON object that represents metadata about your project, stuff that would normally come in here. And so all you have to do is add that line right there to your HTML, and it works. And the great thing is that since it's just a link in your HTML, if you're loading it in a browser that doesn't support the manifest, it doesn't matter. It just kind of skips on over it like it's anything else. So this is what it looks like. Just a whole bunch of metadata that exists. You can add your language attributes, your text direction, your description, icons, all the sort of information that your app would need to know. Sorry, the browser would need to know to run your app like an app offline. You can have theme colors, background colors. You can even set related applications. So if you have a progressive web app, but you also have a native app because there's certain features that aren't available, you can reference those. You can even prefer them if for some reason you want to prefer a native app over a progressive web app. And one of the new features that I'm really excited about is actually the screenshots thing. It's similar to the icons. You just list static screenshots that represent kind of action states of your application. And the big reason why we do that is because at Microsoft, we're really excited about progressive web apps. It's something that I've spent a lot of my last year on, a lot of my team has spent a lot of our time on. And one of the things we're kind of experimenting with is this concept where, well, we have Bing, we have the ability to crawl the web, we can go and find all these different features that exist on websites, whether they're web app manifest, service workers. We can determine whether or not something is a progressive web app, it meets that bar. And what if we were to automatically import them into the Windows Store and expose any website that people made as a web app if it meets a certain bar of quality? Now, of course, you'd be able to opt out of this, but it's kind of something that might be exciting. You could theoretically write code that gets shipped to all the billions of users of Windows automatically and have them available as first-class apps. You'd have apps inside of your progressive web apps to even native Windows APIs as long as they were installed. It's something that's really exciting and something that can really take your progressive web app even further. It's yet another progressive enhancement you can make to your application. One thing you might have noticed, and one thing that really stuck out to me when I started looking at the manifest, is that all that information seems really redundant. If you have a modern website, you probably have a crap load of meta tags up at the top. And a lot of that information is already available in those meta tags. And so I actually created a NPM package called Manifestation that gives you the ability to give it a URL or HTML, and it'll generate a web app manifest for you automatically. It's really, really, really feature-filled. It tries to be as redundant as possible. And so, for example, this is our language detection. We load a couple of node modules. We load in the HTML of the page. We check a language attribute. If that doesn't exist, we check the XML language attribute. If that doesn't exist, we check the Dublin core language attribute. Any librarians? Dublin core? Just me? It's obscure, but we want to check it. And if those all fail, we go back to CLD, or compact language detection. It's a native module where you give it a string and it generates the most accurate, or it predicts the most accurate language based on the text inside of the body. So even if you don't define any attributes, we'll figure out that your website's in Hebrew or Chinese or any other language that might be. And that's one of the simpler ones. This is the first 1% of our icon feature detection. It's extremely complex because we want to support favicons, we want to support Apple Touch icons, larger Apple Touch icons, MS application tile images, the XML file that you could put those tile images in. It's complex, but we want to support everything, and we want to make it really easy. And so what we ended up doing was actually creating Web Manifest. Again, I love stupid domains. Where if you go there today, you'll actually get an input, and you just give it a domain, and it'll go, and it'll create the most complete manifest possible based off of your URL and the HTML you have on that page. And you'll just get a little pop-up, and you save it, and then you just add it as a link to your page. And that's it. You're on your first step to becoming a progressive web app. It's awesome. You just put it in your HTML, and it works. Now, a lot of these features are new, but there's even more features that kind of power PWAs, at least in my view, that have been around for a long time. One of the ones I'm the biggest fans of is a web worker. Like I said, they've been around for a really long time. This is the commit that landed them in WebKit, which was back in 2008, which is like 9 years ago. Edge didn't exist. IE existed, but didn't look like that. It looked like that because it was IE7. Chrome looked like this. Like, it's a really long time ago, 2008. Even though they've been around for a long time, a lot of people don't know what they are. Has anybody here used web workers before? Cool. All right, slightly better, but not still. No, I hope that all of you would raise your hand in the near future because they're really, really cool. The reason they exist is because the web by default is single-threaded. If you've ever implemented a scroll handler or like a really complex click event or something like that, you'll know that the web gets really, really gross. That's because everything can be fighting for that same CPU time. So if you do something that's complex, all of a sudden your page stutters and everything's kind of chunky and doesn't really work that well. Because if you're doing a whole lot of heavy computation, it gets really, really janky. And so what web workers allow us to do is to take complex functions and complex tasks and offload them onto a background task. The reason why you're not able to have it, you had to have everything single-threaded before, is that if you happen to be modifying the DOM in the middle of your calculation of pi, the browser needs to then invalidate all this work that it recently did. So there's no guarantees that it's not going to do something. When you move to a web worker, you don't have access to the DOM. You can just use raw JavaScript. And so you're able to do much more complex functions as long as you're willing to not have to interact with the DOM. You just have this post message interface where you're able to send strings back and forth to get the results. And as a result of using these super expensive functions become extremely cheap. It's just another background task. It's almost like a separate tab in the browser. What's even greater is since they've been around for so long, the support is phenomenal. I mean, it's everything green. Again, Opera Mini is the only thing that doesn't support it, but they've been around for a really long time. Now, outside of Edge, one of the things that I do is I am a maintainer for Modernizr, and I rebuilt the Modernizr website a year and a half ago. And one of the things we really wanted to do is have it work completely offline. And that included the file size estimation. So up at the top, we have we wanted to include the ability to show what the gzipped size of the file was going to be as you check stuff off live on the page without having to ping the server every single time. And so that's exactly what we did. We implemented gzip inside of a web worker, and every single time you modify the page, we figure out the compressed size of the entire library, and we show you. It's great. Another example of crazy web worker stuff you can do is this other project I have, web worker preprocessor. And what that was exactly what it is, because I'm terrible at naming things. You take preprocessors, stuff like less, slim, pug, jade, auto, prefixer, haml, even sass, like other languages, and have them run inside of the browser. That's exactly what I did. I'm a huge fan of JSBin. Remy, if you're still here, thank you very much. And they have this feature, CSS or Sass and SCSS support in there, which is awesome, but it requires you to go to the network every single time. So if you do something, this is Sass, so we can do nesting. We do background, Rebecca purple, and it works great. But the problem is that when I'm traveling, especially I'm on a plane, a lot of times I don't have access to it. So if I turn on airplane mode to simulate that, normally it would not work. But once I modified this locally, I have it working completely offline. This is a complete version of Sass, including the Ruby runtime that works inside of a web worker. And so I can run Sass stuff. I can run any kind of Ruby code that actually exists. You can drag and drop your exact Sass documents as they have them today, and it will work offline with this web worker. It works great, really, really fast. To what? JSBin? It has support for it openly. In fact, it's complicated. Find me after, I'll tell you. But yeah, and so like web workers are really cool. You can do some crazy crap with it. This is another thing, Pokedex. If you guys know Nolan Lawson, you might be familiar with Pokedex.org. It's an awesome website. That's exactly what it is, the Pokedex. He created it using a React-like library called Virtual DOM. And Virtual DOM is basically the concept that powers a lot of React. That you just have you're able to change state inside of your document and then do a diff of it, and then it figures out the most efficient way to diff that stuff. Now, the logic for that doesn't require the DOM, so he was actually able to implement it inside of a web worker. And so what that means is that all of the updates, all of the different logic that has to go into updating your page is really, really quick. He actually, here's him running it inside of a Nexus S. That's a 6-year-old cell phone, if memory serves, and it's getting 60 frames per second. I struggle to get 60 frames per second on my Dancing Dot site, and that's a new thing, and this is like a 6-year-old phone. You can do really, really, really performant websites by leveraging web workers. If you're more interested in Pokedex, you can check it out right there. Last thing I'm going to talk about, IndexedDB. It's another thing that Nolan's really famous for. It's a storage method. Does anybody here use IndexedDB? That is shocking. That is the most people I've ever seen raise their hands at that statement. It is a really awesome, it gives you awesome abilities, but the API leaves a little bit to be desired. It's been around for a while as well. Here's where it was added to, I believe this was Firefox. They implemented it way back in 2010. And one of the reasons why it's not very popular is the syntax. This is the local storage syntax, which I'm sure we're all fairly familiar with. You just get a key, put a value, you get it back. To do the same thing in IndexedDB from scratch, you have to write something like this. Yeah, it's kind of gross, right? But that's because it's nearly a full database inside of the browser. It gives you the ability to create a database in the browser. But because it's kind of gross, not many people want to write that directly. And as a result, not many people have used IndexedDB. In addition, there's a lot of other storage mechanisms that are simpler to use inside of the browser, stuff like local storage or cookies or app cache or cache API or website. There's a lot. The nice thing, though, is in the past few years, we've actually gotten some great libraries for IndexedDB to make it a lot more palatable. Dexy.js is a great option. It lets you write code kind of in a jQuery chaining style. It works really well. Local Forage, if you can guess by the name, gives you a local storage-like API that is backed by IndexedDB and falls back to WebSQL if need be. And then Nolan's pet project is PouchDB, which is a full CouchDB inside of the browser. So you can have full CouchDB database syncing from your server to the client, completely work offline. It works phenomenally well. The biggest strength about IndexedDB, though, isn't the neat libraries that have been coming up. It's more that it has a ridiculous amount of storage ability. In Chrome, Firefox, and most modern browsers, you actually get up to 50% of available storage on the device that can be used for this with a user prompt. So you have gigabytes of storage available. You can have really, really huge applications. You can store music, you can store videos, all these other things to make really powerful offline applications. If you want to see how much you can really do, there's a website called the Browser Storage Abuser, where you're able to show how much raw data you can store on that specific device. It's available at this URL. It's really neat to see all the different ways you can keep a whole bunch of storage and a whole bunch of data on a page. You can imagine creating podcast apps, video apps, etc. So all that stuff is really fun and great, and I've been talking about progressive web apps for like a year now, and one of the first comments I usually get as soon as I get off the stage is like, what about Safari? I totally understand that pretty much everybody has to write something that works on an iPhone or works on desktop Safari possibly, and I don't work there, I work at Microsoft, but I can share public information that they've made public. A couple bits of information. This was from their 5-year plan that came out in 2015. The URL's here at the bottom. And one of the things I want to point out is up here, under service workers, they do say we should do it. And right above that, under the Fetch API, they say we should do this, and that actually shipped in Safari 10.1, the same update that included Grid that came out earlier in the week. So it does seem like they're going to come, but if you want it to come even sooner, one of the things you can do as individuals is to reach out to this guy, John Davis. He's the developer evangelist at Safari. He recently tweeted that he would love to have more bug reports for features at this website. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that browsers are kind of starved for feedback from web developers. Useful feedback at the very least. At least at Microsoft, we get yelled at a lot. But it can be really, really helpful to get things like, we want these features, we want these items, we want the ability to do this. I can't do X today, please help. And so if you want to help get service workers implemented inside of Safari, one thing you can do is go to bugreport.apple.com and leave feedback. Stuff like, I really want to have an offline application with dynamic data. Or just give your service worker use cases to them, and that will help them prioritize it internally and make it come faster. But the ultimate thing that I'm trying to say here is that you shouldn't be waiting for Safari or Edge or Firefox or Chrome or even your own re-architecture. When you're thinking about progressive web apps, you shouldn't be waiting for anything. You should start today. You should start using features today. Give feedback to browser implementers today. Check out WebVR. Check out CSS Grid. Check out all these things today. You don't have to wait for these features to land across all browsers. Just check out the new and shiny features, make awesome stuff, and you'll have a lot of fun. Cool. That's me. Thanks.